I, female, 27, have been in no contact with my mom and stepdad for the last 7 years. I ended up moving out prematurely after my stepdad, Dean, male, 50, asked me to do some shady stuff to let me stay in the house. My mom ended up marrying Dean when I was 17. She was smitten, and even I could tell that she was kind of in denial with Dean's red flags. He was a little traditional and felt like he was the man of the house. Like Mom and I had been doing just fine for the last 17 years. I don't think he had to act all assertive like that when he came into our lives. I have no idea who my bio dad is since he ditched us when my mom was pregnant. I guess because of that, I tend to have an aversion to dudes as authority figures. Anyways, Dean moved in a little while after they started dating, and eventually we all moved into a house together. Dean always used to laud the fact that he made more money and helped our lifestyle out over me and Mom, and it was a skewed power dynamic. I get that we were living in a crappy apartment before, but you couldn't really buy love with a condo, right? I warned my mom about how this behavior was kind of toxic, but as I mentioned, she was in denial about all of this. Dean also eventually told us that he had a daughter from a previous relationship named Eleanor, who was around my age. She was staying with her mom as Dean had been declared unfit to take care of a child at the time of their separation. Again, the fact that he hadn't told Mom about this until after we were all living together was a big problem for me. Dean took us to meet his daughter, and she was a really nice person. She was staying with her mom and honestly didn't seem that close to Dean. However, any time the conversation came up, Dean kept talking about how he would be much better off as Eleanor's primary caregiver. I distanced myself from all of this. When I turned 18, I started going to college, but due to a lack of dorm vacancies and no good apartments in the area, I decided to stay at Dean's house with my mom. I even offered to pay rent, but my stepdad declined. Everything was going pretty well, barring my stepdad's obnoxious behavior, and I was settling into the rhythm of college work, some light freelancing, and just generally enjoying my life. In my sophomore year, I was surprised to see Eleanor on campus, and when I started speaking to her, she told me that she was on campus via scholarships, and she was a few months away from turning 18. I was happy to see her there, and we became really close friends during our time in college. Dean also used to inquire about her and how she was doing in college, and I later got to know from my mom that apparently Dean and Eleanor's mom had gone no contact after an incident. I had no idea what this incident was, and I wasn't sure whether it would be okay to ask Eleanor. However, she told me herself when we were hanging out one day that apparently Dean had insulted the way Eleanor's mom was raising her without discipline, and that spiraled into a full-blown fight. I wasn't surprised to hear that it came from my stepdad acting like a jerk, because to be honest, that's kind of all he did. Eleanor was strongly on her mom's side, and I could empathize with that. A few months after this, I was called to a family meeting, and Dean and Mom sat me down to talk about my living situation. They went on about how I was too old to be living at home, and it was cutting into their privacy. I was pretty annoyed at this because I didn't force them to keep me at home. They literally offered due to the situation at college. I even offered rent, which they refused. Then Mom says, "Oh, P, I don't want you to feel unwelcome, but you need to do something for us to keep living here. I mean, you don't want to be a freeloader, do you? Dean says that he wants you to stay, but well, you need to start pulling your weight around here." As offended as I was, I asked her what exactly I could do to help out. That's when Dean told me that he wanted to have full custody of Eleanor. In his words, his daughter was going to grow up to be a good-for-nothing when she graduated unless she lived by his rules. He even stated that he would have nothing to do with her if she ended up becoming a bum, which in his eyes could mean anything from a tattoo artist to a politician, depending on his mood. To stop that from happening, he said that he wanted me to slowly start poisoning Eleanor against her mother and telling her how good of a father he was. He knew for a fact that sometimes my stepsister had to struggle financially because her mom didn't have a lot of savings. She was even in college through a need-based scholarship. Objectively speaking and looking back on everything, perhaps being with Dean would have given her more resources to become successful. But at the time, all I could think about was how Dean wanted me to manipulate someone who was my close friend in college to serve his own ends. I flatly refused, and all pretensions of being a good guy escaped from Dean's face. He berated me and called me a stupid girl, and my mom just watched. When I turned to her and asked if she would let this a-hole talk to me like that, she was just blank. I then said, "I'll gladly leave the house. You guys aren't fit to be parents now, or ever." I got all my stuff gathered and moved out within a week. I didn't have a place to stay, but was flitting between friends. Eleanor didn't know the full story. I feel like if she did, it would completely ruin her perception of her dad, which was on rocky ground as it is. So I just told her it was a disagreement about living space and privacy. I should have told her the full story, but again, that's just what I feel now. Thankfully, I got a flat soon after and graduated and landed a great job. I stayed in touch with Eleanor for a while, but she abruptly cut me off when I was around 25. I tried to reach out to her several times but couldn't get a response. I only found out why she cut me off yesterday because, well, she came to visit me. What I thought would be a pleasant surprise turned out to be quite a shock. Eleanor shouted at me for ruining her life and her relationship with her dad. When I asked her what she meant, she told me that my decision back then led to her being homeless for a year and her dad going no contact with her. I have no idea what she meant, but it was clear that she was feeling distraught. I asked her to come into the house and she accepted my invitation, but also said that she wouldn't consider me a friend until I made up for what I had done. She's sleeping in the living room of my apartment right now, and I'll wait for her to wake up and give me the full context of her story, but I feel really guilty after seeing her so upset. The fact that she was homeless worries me a lot. Did my refusal to help Dean cause him to completely ghost Eleanor? Was I TA for dealing with things back the way I did, and was Eleanor's mom not a great parent? There are so many questions in my head, Reddit. I hope you guys can help out. Update 1. So my stepsister woke up and I took her out for coffee. She was still quite cold towards me until I pushed on her about what had happened and why she ghosted me. After Eleanor graduated, she had difficulty finding a good job and ended up running her own business. This wasn't bringing in a lot of money, but it was enough for her and her mom to get by. However, when I was 25, her mom passed away and left Eleanor with a lot of debt to pay off. That essentially tanked her business, and when she went to Dean for help with paying stuff off, he told her that I wouldn't be comfortable with it. He spun the whole story of me leaving their house during college as me throwing a hissy fit because Eleanor was getting too much attention, and that he and I had reconciled on the terms that he doesn't offer too much time or financial support to Eleanor. I was still friends with my stepsister at the time, but she ended up believing her dad and thinking that even my friend was a ruse, leading to her cutting me off. Then, struggling to keep things going, she was evicted and homeless for a few months. After that, Dean took her in but made her live in a living hell by making it seem like she's obliged to them. She started her business back up again, but Dean informally takes a lot of her earnings. After I heard all of this, I knew that I should have told my stepsister the whole truth back in college. I can't believe I thought I should protect her from what a dick her dad was. I told her about what happened, and she was disgusted by how Dean had lied to her. I also told her that while it was unfortunate that her mom passed and she was left without help from her dad, it wasn't something I would have been able to predict. She doesn't blame my decision of literally not manipulating her. Now that she knows what had happened, but she's scared to go back and face Dean with all of this new information. I've decided that we'll both go face him together, and then after that, Eleanor could live with me. We're leaving tomorrow. Update 2. The confrontation is over, and my God, that was a toxic household. Dean looked like he had seen a ghost when I walked into the house, and once Eleanor went off on him, he knew he had messed up. After a point, he just stopped defending himself and said, "It's still OP's fault, don't you see? If you were with me, you wouldn't have ended up homeless. I didn't give you any help because you needed to learn a lesson." I'm surprised Eleanor didn't slap her dad then and there, but his saying that sealed the deal. She's going to move out of the house since she's always been made to feel like a burden, and she'll come live with me. Her business can be run online, although some stuff will have to be moved to a warehouse. It was previously operating out of Dean's garage, but anything to get her out of this whole situation. I met my mom after 7 years too, but she seems like a completely changed person. During the whole fight, she was completely docile and didn't offer a single opinion. When I turned to her and said, "Do you even care that I came back, Mom? Do you care that your husband was okay with making his daughter homeless?" She just said, "It was a decision that I stood by." Update 3. Eleanor is living with me and her whole personality is much chipper now. She says she feels happier and safer. I also got to learn more about her online crafts business, and I am investing in it to help her expand. Both of us are also, obviously, going no contact with Dean and my mom. NTA, you were just a kid. Your morals were in the right place when you refused to pressure your friend and poison her against her mother. Dean is a complete a-hole from the moment he came into your life, though. NTA, I feel Eleanor's pain. She was lied to and basically emotionally abused for this to happen. She took it out on you when the real a-hole was your stepdad. Next story. I, 31, female, am married to John, 34, male. We are high school sweethearts and have been married for 6 years. This event is about his brother, Tom, 32, who was in my graduating class, so I have known him longer than anyone else in the family. A little background on Tom. He was the class bully and is still a bit of a bully today. He used to make fun of kids in school who were different or maybe had problems with learning, and not much has changed. Think typical man's man toxic behavior. We grew up in a pretty small town and Tom married Erica, 31, who was also in our class in school and was kind of mean to people as well. For the record, I was never the target of their abuse. Ultimately, when the three of us graduated, my brother-in-law got into the family business. Sister-in-law attended a trade school and I left to join John in a large city for college. We have remained in that city ever since. We returned to our hometown to visit our families and did so for a long weekend recently. Tom and Erica have 2 children, Allie, 7, female, and Matthew, 5, male. We have 1 child, Sam, 4. While I still find my brother-in-law difficult to put up with, Erica has grown a lot and is a different person from who she was in high school. The cousins do not see each other often, so when we can get them together, we try to do so, and I really like Erica now. A few years ago, it became pretty clear that Matthew was not hitting his benchmarks. I expressed my concern for Erica and suggested she seek some professional help so he can receive early intervention. She agreed, and my concern really just confirmed hers while my brother-in-law kept making excuses. After many months, he was diagnosed with autism. He has been in therapies for the past few years, but is still nonverbal and still in diapers. This has become very distressing to my brother-in-law, and he is lashing out at doctors, therapists, and Erica. My take is He knows how mean he was to kids like his son, and now he is the parent of a disabled child. Erica and I were talking, and she asked if John would talk to Tom about how unproductive his behavior is and see if he would listen to his big brother. I asked John to speak to him, and he agreed. The next day they were outside, and John brought it up. Tom immediately stormed off and came inside. Erica asked what was wrong, and Tom went off on her. He tried to calm him down, and he started in on me and how I would never understand because my child is healthy. Then he said he was the one that deserves the healthy child since I'm so okay with his son shitting in diapers at 5 years old. I said, "You don't deserve a healthy child. No one is owed a healthy child." Well, this must have been the absolute worst thing to say because he kicked my family out. And now I can't help but wonder if this comment really made me an a-hole. My in-laws think he's overreacting. My husband is pissed at him, and Erica has been secretly texting me and is really concerned about him. Edit. I made this comment, so I'll put it here too. The actual conversation was that my child isn't typical, because I was owed or deserved a typical child, and this child is not autistic because he was owed or deserved a disabled child. Update. Not sure if anyone will actually see this, but there has been an update. Basically, my sister-in-law and siblings are going to come to stay with us over the summer, and my nephew will be enrolled in some therapies in our city. We have some connections in some of the best places, and we are hoping that he will have 10 weeks of uninterrupted therapy. My sister-in-law is using this time to see if my brother-in-law is a barrier to Matthew's progress. We both know 10 weeks is not enough time, but if progress is made, we will figure out the next steps. NTA, most of those saying otherwise have difficulty with reading comprehension and/or visualizing the scenario. You probably could have kept quiet, but it's clear that you aren't the a-hole based on the responses of everyone else involved. You were responding to his selfish comment, thinking only about himself instead of his own son. I hope Erica is able to work through this. Continue to be a source of strength for her. Next story. I'm 41, male. My sister, 52, female, is the eldest of our mom's 9 children. She has always been the most important person in my life, and I owe her so much. She's had a very tough life, but despite this, never fails to be the nicest and most giving person. In 2016, myself and 2 of my brothers brought her a small house. It was a bit of a fixer-upper, and we spent a year on-off renovating it into a dream house for her. She lives there now with her youngest 2 children, 13 male, 15 female, and our autistic brother, 43 male. She has been dating her boyfriend for around 10 months. None of our family like this man, and he is a massive loser. He is an old friend of one of our brothers who OD'd and died almost a decade ago. This man is also an addict, spent time in prison, and is a deadbeat dad to his daughters. We all want her to end things with him, but she seems very in love. We don't just blindly hate the man, but are actually concerned with her having him in her life. She is 10+ years sober, and his influence could cause her to relapse. She has a history of dating, marrying abusive men, and most importantly, I don't want him around my niece, nephew, and her grandkids. On Saturday, my sister told me that he was going to move in with her because he's getting kicked out of his apartment. They won't let him renew his lease. I instinctively told her that it was a bad idea and that I see things ending badly. She blew me off and changed the subject, so I let it go for the moment. I texted her youngest son later and asked him what he thought and if he was okay with it. He essentially said no and that he did not like the guy. I also contacted my other brothers that I co-bought the house with, and they were also unhappy she was inviting him to move in. They agreed that I could tell her as owner of the house that he cannot move in with her. I told her this yesterday and she was unhappy and told me I was overstepping and interfering with her life. I gave her my reasons and told her we just wanted to protect her and her kids. She asked me how I would stop her from moving him in, and I threatened that I would call CPS and tell them she was allowing an addict to live with her children. For good measure, my cousin and I went to where her boyfriend drinks and told him he wasn't going to be moving in. My younger sister called me last night to berate me for banning this man from moving in and told me I was using the excuse of protecting our sister to actually control her life. She thinks me and my brothers are asses for using something nice we did for her as a tool now to interfere with her new life. My younger sister has only met the boyfriend once, whereas my brothers and I have known him for years and know what he is like. She's really only going off information our sister told her. AITA? Berate me for banning this man from moving in and told me I was using the excuse of protecting our sister to actually control her life. She has two choices: accept your decision or move out and pay her own way if she must be with him. NTA. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.